I turned 80 last winter. The candles on the cake felt almost ceremonial, like they were marking not just another year but the closing of a long chapter. People asked me how it felt, and I gave the usual answers about gratitude and luck. But the truth is, turning 80 didn't make me think about everything I'd done. It made me think about one thing I never did, one moment I let pass, one sentence I never said, an apology that stayed stuck in my chest for more than 2 decades, quietly shaping my life in ways I didn't understand until much later. In 1999, I was 53 years old. I was busy in the way only middle age makes you busy. Work was demanding, my kids were grown but still needed advice and money, and my marriage felt like something we maintained rather than lived. I told myself I was doing what responsible adults do. I showed up, paid bills, solved problems. I thought that was enough. Looking back now, I can see how often I used being busy as a shield. It gave me an excuse not to deal with uncomfortable emotions, not to have hard conversations, not to admit when I was wrong. The apology I never said was meant for my younger brother, Mark. We were close growing up, the kind of brothers who fought hard and laughed harder. As adults, though, life pulled us in different directions. He stayed closer to home, took care of our aging parents, and worked a steady job that didn't impress anyone at family gatherings. I moved away, chased promotions, and wore my success like armor. I didn't say it out loud, but I felt superior. That quiet arrogance colored more of my words than I realized at the time. The argument happened over something small, at least on the surface. It was Thanksgiving, and we were both tired. Our mother had just been diagnosed with early memory issues, and tensions were high. Mark accused me of not being around enough, of leaving him to handle everything alone. Instead of hearing the fear and exhaustion in his voice, I heard criticism. I snapped back. I said things I can still hear clearly today, words that were sharp and unnecessary. I questioned his choices, his ambition, his competence. I told myself I was just being honest. In reality, I was being cruel. The room went quiet after that. My mother stared at her plate. My father cleared his throat and changed the subject. Mark didn't yell. He didn't insult me back. He just looked at me for a long moment, nodded once, and said, "All right." That was it. The conversation moved on, but something between us shifted. I noticed it, but I convinced myself it would fix itself with time. Families always do, I thought. That's what I told myself so I wouldn't have to say I was sorry. In the weeks after, I replayed the argument in my head more than I care to admit. I knew I'd crossed a line. I even practiced the apology while driving to work, imagining how I'd call him, how I'd acknowledge my words and explain myself. But every time I picked up the phone, something stopped me. Pride, mostly. A stubborn voice that said, "He started it," or "He knows you didn't mean it." I told myself I'd apologize later when things cooled down. Later felt safer, later felt easier, later never came. Life kept moving. Our parents' health declined. There were hospital visits, tough decisions, and quiet resentments. Mark and I stayed civil, but the warmth was gone. Conversations became practical, limited to updates and logistics. I noticed he stopped sharing his personal struggles with me. I noticed, and I did nothing. Each time I thought about apologizing, it felt heavier, like the weight of time made the words harder to say. An apology after a week feels natural. An apology after a year feels awkward. An apology after years feels almost impossible. When our father passed away in 2005, we stood side by side at the funeral. We shook hands, hugged briefly, and spoke politely. People probably thought everything was fine. On the inside, I felt the distance like a physical ache. I remember standing there, listening to the service, thinking that this was not how I wanted things to be between us. And still, I said nothing. Grief became another excuse. I told myself it wasn't the right time. Mark died suddenly in 2012. A heart attack. No warning. I got the call on a Tuesday afternoon while sitting at my desk. The world narrowed to a single sound, a ringing in my ears that didn't stop for hours. At the funeral, I met his wife and children with a sense of shame I didn't yet have words for. I realized, standing there, that the chance to apologize had ended. Permanently. There would be no later. No better moment. Just silence where words should have been. For years after that, I tried not to think about it. I stayed busy, I retired. I filled my days with projects, with hobbies, with small distractions. From the outside, my life looked peaceful. From the inside, there was a quiet regret that surfaced at unexpected times. It would show up in the middle of the night, or during a long drive, or when I heard someone laugh the way Mark used to laugh. I started to understand that regret isn't loud, it doesn't announce itself, it waits patiently. As I got older, my sense of time changed. Days felt shorter, years felt thinner. At 80, memories from decades ago feel close enough to touch, while last week feels strangely distant. That's when I finally understood how deeply that unspoken apology had shaped my life. It wasn't just about Mark. It was about the pattern it set. The times I chose comfort over courage. The moments I avoided vulnerability because I didn't want to feel small. That one silence taught me how easy it is to carry regret quietly, and how hard it is to put it down once you do. I've replayed that Thanksgiving countless times, imagining different versions. In one, I pause before speaking and choose kindness. In another, I call him the next day and admit I was wrong. In the version I wish were real, I tell him that I saw how much he was carrying, that I appreciated him, that my words came from my own insecurity. I don't know how he would have responded. Maybe he would have forgiven me right away. Maybe it would have taken time. What I do know is that saying nothing, guaranteed nothing, would change. People often think wisdom comes from big moments, from dramatic failures or public losses. In my experience, it comes from the small, quiet choices we make every day. The choice to speak or stay silent. The choice to protect our ego or protect the relationship. At 53, I thought I had plenty of time. At 80, I know how fragile that assumption was. Time doesn't announce when it's running out. It just does. If you're listening to this and there's someone in your life you've been meaning to talk to, someone you owe an apology to, I won't tell you what to do. I'm not here to give advice like I have all the answers. I'm just sharing what it feels like to look back and realize that one sentence left unsaid can echo for decades. An apology doesn't erase the past, but silence locks it in place. I've learned that apologizing isn't about admitting defeat. It's about acknowledging humanity, both theirs and yours. It's about choosing connection over being right. I wish I had understood that earlier. I wish I had known that the discomfort of a difficult conversation is small compared to the weight of lifelong regret. Now, in the quiet mornings, I sometimes speak the apology out loud, even though Mark can't hear it. I say his name. I say, I'm sorry. It doesn't change what happened, but it reminds me of who I want to be for the time I have left. It reminds me to say the important things while I still can. Turning 80 didn't teach me this lesson. I learned it slowly, painfully, over years of silence. I'm sharing it now because time has a way of convincing us we can wait. I believed that once. I know better now.